Thank you for tuning in to No Sudden Moves Radio. And remember, stay on the proven path so you don't risk falling behind. Here at Business Legends, we don't overthink it. Look around and see what everyone else is doing. If it's working for them, it will work for you.
Welcome to Wait It Out, where we believe there's no reason to act now. The opportunity will still be there when the timing is better.
The age of disruption isn't coming, it's here. And the boldest move isn't following the crowd, it's following your why. I'm Patrick Leddin, and you're listening to Disruption Lab. Welcome to Disruption Lab, the podcast that explores how people make progress, perform, and deliver great results, all in the face of disruption, and along the way, unlock what's possible on the other side. I'm Patrick Leddin, and today we're joined by a leader who has operated at the highest level of business around the world. Klaus Kleinfeld has led companies like Siemens and Alcoa. He's advised startups. He's worked with heads of state. And now he's here to talk about what it really means to lead successfully in the face of all that life throws at you. His book, Leading to Thrive, is packed with practical advice and personal insight. It's a playbook, really, for thriving in both the outer game of results and the inner game of purpose. If you've ever wondered how to stay grounded while driving performance, how to build world-class teams without burning yourself out, or how to lead through disruption and still sleep well at night, this conversation is for you. Hey, Klaus, welcome to the program.
Well, Patrick, wonderful to have you.
Wonderful to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm just delighted to have somebody who's had, both the roles that you've had and those experiences, but really the insight it's given you about both the outside game and the inside game, if you will. And I often wonder, somebody who's had the level of visibility and success you've had in your career, what makes you say, okay, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and take the time to write a book? Because that's a challenging endeavor into itself. How did you end up kind of deciding to write this book?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of talent. I'm a big fan of developing talent, finding talent and developing people. I've also seen how other leaders have succeeded and struggled. But what I saw one crazy thing. I thought it was crazy because I saw on the one hand the demands on business leader has been growing substantially, and I saw more people, also younger people, getting burned out at a very early point in time. And well, you might say, well, this is just the way the world is going, faster, faster, faster. But then I looked at sports, which I consider high performance. I personally love tennis. I don't play it as well as I wish. And I've been looking at what's been happening there. And I saw that the top players have been staying in the game for longer and have been getting older, which I thought that's a strange dichotomy because in a way, a business leader is also a high performance athlete. So what's been going on? And that got me into this thing that almost became a wormhole, finding out what is going on there. And I learned a ton. I learned that I was a big fan of time management, having grown up in Germany, obviously discipline and managing your time well and not wasting any time is obviously very important, part of the national DNA. And I realized it's not so much about time management, it's about energy management and understanding what does that mean, energy management, what sources of energy are there, how do you deal with that, how do you basically throw away energy, the waste energy, and how do you conserve energy, and then the whole aspect of purpose. So and finally, I thought, well, look, I can teach as I have been doing and mentor as I continue to do a lot of people, but at the same time, I need something to multiply. And that's why I wrote the book and thought I want to provide a framework to the older ones, the younger ones, the ones who aspire to be a leader, those who are a leader, a framework that they can literally use in their day-to-day life. And I, on purpose, didn't write it as an academic paper. I've written enough academic papers in my life. So I wrote it as a practical one, as you said, and wanted to make sure that there are practical advice and also that people don't believe or realize that recovery is not a question of equidistance time. It's very often a lot of tricks that high performance people have learned, and wanted to also provide some of those kind of tricks.
That's so true. When you think about athletes, for example, you said on the front end, I've had a chance to talk to some athletes and interview some athletes and just watch athletes, right? And what they do. And they kind of got early on the whole bandwagon, I think, of recognizing like the importance of rest and diet and for some reason, sometimes in business, we'll wear it as like a badge of honor that we sleep 4 hours a night or something like that. But it's so counterproductive over the course of time. What do you think that athletes? What do you think it is about an athlete that makes them like realize the value of this stuff perhaps quicker than we sometimes do in the business world?
Because I mean, particularly in tennis, when you look at a tennis tournament, there probably are 200 to 300 people playing in a decent sized tournament. There's one winner. Even if you are number two, best in the world, so to say, you walk away from this tournament not as a winner. So what you have to do, not just physically, but also mentally, is enormous. So I think there was a phase when Andrew Agassi, and for the older ones here, is still a name, when Andrew Agassi was playing like a god, and then he broke down entirely, and then he came back. And I think he was one of the first who understood I have to manage my whole range of energy. And this is not, I mean, the physical part was known to them. They had to train, they also knew about sleep. They know about, I mean, what you eat and stuff. But the thing that they didn't understand is how do you manage your emotions? How do you manage your mental focus? And what does the spiritual world, what role does that play? And the moment they understood it's one package, it's these four sources of energy. And how do you conserve this? And how do you gain this? And that basic energy is a good in the morning when you wake up. There's a lot there, and during the day, during the course of the day, you burn it out. And that's what led them to adopt those tricks. I mean, every tennis player these days, top tennis player, has a very, very fast recharge routine. And they do that in the 20 seconds that are allowed between the serves. In the 20 seconds between the serves, they have learned a routine which resets them mentally. Their focus changes. They concentrate on a time when they performed extremely well. After the 20 seconds, they are literally a new person. And they can do this repeatedly over the course of 4+ hours that they are on the court.
I'm nowhere near a world-class athlete. Probably wouldn't even be called an athlete, but I do a lot of hiking and some mountain climbing. And I'm always amazed at, you're right at that point of exhaustion. And then if you just take a break, maybe a little nourishment, or maybe all of a sudden your energy reserves just pump back so quickly, as opposed to if I took 20 more steps, I might fall over sometimes. It's kind of interesting that ability of our body to kind of bounce back, especially
Well,
if we
not only
continue to work it.
not only that, but also to make sure that there are people who or things that drain your energy, Sometimes it's a question of, I mean, do you allow people the emotional energy? I hear a lot, oh, I had a very stressful meeting. This person was annoying me. And when you hear them talk about it, you can actually feel how the energy has been drained from them, not realizing that the emotion is something that you own. You can control it. The same thing happens to somebody who's playing on the court, loses 1 point, loses a second point. You can get into this frenzy. If you make sure that it doesn't affect you, you lost the point. There's nothing you can do. You won't let this affect you, and your next game is going to be as good as the best one that you have. And you can, in a meeting, I mean, I have adopted this many, many times, that I have somebody in a meeting who's trying to drain me and who's trying to push buttons that typically make me jump. And I just don't let it come to me. I just think this is their opinion, but it's not affecting me. And with this, I conserve energy. The other thing is, what do you focus on? I mean, if you open the paper today, any paper, or open your email, there's a ton of crap that comes to you. Do you focus on the bad things, or do you have a focus that sees an opportunity in the challenges? There's the story of the old shoemaker who had two sons, and he wanted to pass his business on, doesn't know who to pass it on to. So he decides to send his two sons over to Africa, to two different places in Africa. The first son sends him a note back and says, "Father, I have very bad news. Everybody's running around barefoot. There's no market here." The other son sends him a note back, "Father, great news. This is an endless market. Send me as many shoes as you can find. Everybody's running around barefoot." Classical example of what perspective. And my impression is, the most successful leaders have a way to see it as the second son does. They see whenever there's a challenge, there's a light going on, And when people get into panic, there's a light going and say, isn't there also an opportunity?
Oh, that's so well put. Hey, you talk in the book about inner game versus outer game, or inner game and outer game, I guess I
Yes.
should say. I'd love to explore both of these. You
Yes.
tell me, you're the expert on this. Is it better off to go down the outer game conversation because people are a little more familiar with it, or what inner game? Which way should we go?
No, I think on purpose, I start the book with the inner game because the outer game is, I mean, you just millions of leadership books and some good ones, some excellent ones, and some okay ones, you know. So I think that I would not have sat down and write the book if it hadn't been for providing this framework on the inner game,
Okay.
because that's one thing that is very close to my heart to make sure that I will not see people burning out in the early 30s, which I had happening in one of the startups that I've been working with. And that is not necessary. It's actually wrong. And I think it's the question of what framework do you have? What energy sources are there? How do you replenish them? How do you make sure that you're not getting exhausted? And the other point that we didn't talk about yet is what is the purpose? What is your purpose? Because purpose does to energy what laser does to light. It is like a light is a very diffuse thing. The moment you put it into a laser and you concentrate it, it goes through walls. And the same thing is true with purpose. And every one of us has seen it. If we want something really, and we have very good reasons that we say, this is us, this is what we have to do. You get up in the morning and you know what to do. You know what to do, and there's nothing that holds you back. That's what purpose does to energy.
Yeah, it's so true, right? And it's funny when it comes to purpose. I think there's as many different purpose I out there as there are
Yes,
people, right? I mean, everybody kind of
yes,
has to find their own way through the process of doing it.
yes.
Was that something that you were able to find yourself pretty early on in life, or did you stumble into your purpose? Did you go off to the top of a mountain and seek it? I mean, how did Klaus figure out his purpose in
I
life?
grew up in the north of Germany. There was no mountain. Maybe I shouldn't have gone on a mountain. So,
Okay, along the
no.
North Sea somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's also very spiritual. Exactly true. Looking at the ocean. And that I did. Not even when I was younger, but I love it. I still love it. Yeah. So what purpose is this very strange concept that has been around as long as humankind exists. Gazillions of people, bright people, have thought about purpose. And in my book, I do what I call a ride through space and time, just to provide options to say this are per pie or whatever you call it, plural
Yeah,
of purpose.
the made up word, right? Yeah,
They're made up word, exactly. So these are different purposes. I guess that's the right one.
yeah, purposes.
And think about it. And the other, and I also use the book to sort it out for myself. And I conclude that it's not that you should could only have one purpose. Very often we have different roles. So you have a purpose as a father. You know, you have a purpose as a business leader. You might have a purpose also as the son to your parents. So there might be multiple things. That's perfectly fine. And it can also change over time, right? As long as you apply this, and I provide a kind of a checklist also to this, as long as you apply this checklist and say, is this really what makes me excited? Or is this just another task that I feel I have to do in my life? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this enormous, strength that comes to it. When you find your purpose, that's the one. That's the one that gets you jumping out of your bed and say, this is what I want.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just know it when you feel it rings true, right? It's kind of one of those things that just cuts through.
Exactly, and I think one of the things that also I I put in the book on purpose, even though it's a bit of a dark thing, is we all feel like, hey, we can do it tomorrow. It's not that important, and then one day tomorrow is there's no tomorrow, and there are very few studies on what people regret when they are dying. And I put in there a chapter on what do people regret when they are when on their deathbed, and it's quite challenging. When you see that people say, "I wish I had allowed myself to behave more like me.
Hmm.
I wish I had listened less to other people's opinions. I wish I had allowed myself to be happier." That is quite scary. And I think that is a wake-up call, should be a wake-up call for every one of us and say, which voices am I listening to? I mean, that's the other thing. There's gazillions of voices in your head all the time talking to you. And sometimes mistakenly, people think this is all you, but it's not all you. And I would highly recommend to sort those out and say, what of those are me? What of those are just some people who are trying to make me believe that that's what I should do and that's what I should, how I should behave. But what is me?
Yeah.
What counts? What counts basically once the life is over? What would I have wanted to have done, or who would I have wanted to be? You know, and today you can still influence it. At a certain point in time, you can't anymore. So I think that's an important wake-up call, a really, really important wake-up call. And also this point, which I call sand, pebbles, and stones, in regards to how do you prioritize your life? I mean, in terms of how much time do you do for what? I mean, if you fill your jar of time that you are alive with sand, which means you live in the day, there's always some crap coming and deal with the crap, then you won't have time for the real important things, which are the pebbles and definitely the stones. So in reality, you have to fill the jar first with the stones and basically say, hey, this is which I want to do, where I want to put my time. And at the end, if you have something left over, you throw some other things. Otherwise, the sand, the unimportant but urgent stuff will take over. And that's another thing that I cover in my book that somebody wrote. It was posthumously, the former head of KPMG, it was posthumously released, and I happen to know him.
Oh,
He was diagnosed.
is that Chasing Daylight?
Yes,
The book
exactly.
yeah, yeah, I remember
Yeah, exactly.
Eugene
Kelly.
Kelly, yeah, Eugene
Yeah.
Kelly. I remember reading that, yeah.
And Eugene died way too young, and he was diagnosed with brain cancer at a late point in time, was over, you know, and he then sat down, quit immediately after he got the diagnosis, and sat down and wrote a book, Chasing Daylight. And he described this exercise that he said, I have, the doctors didn't, I don't know what it was, 3 months, 6 months time. And he said, I want to say goodbye to the people. And he made three circles. The one,
Yeah.
the inner circle, I want to meet with those people. The next circle, I want to have a longer conversation or so with them. And the last one, I'm going to send them a note. And when he put the names in there, he saw that the outer circle was full with people. The inner circle, very few people, which is kind of normal. But then when he looked at who he had spent time with in the last years, while he was the head of KPMG, it was exactly the opposite. I mean, the outer circle were the people who he'd spent most of the time with, and the inner circle he had kind of neglected because, in a way, sometimes we think, oh, you know, they're always there. They are family, they're always there. You know, yeah, I can do it at another point in time. Christmas is coming, but next Christmas I don't have time, you know, because a new client is calling, blah, 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 you know, and then there's no Christmas anymore for you.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember reading that book years ago, and I believe Chasing Daylight had to do with the concept of golfing and he and his wife, trying to play one more hole type of thing before the sun set.
Oh,
And I think that was how he used it. And it was a really interesting book. I encourage people to check it out. I mean,
yeah.
it's a topic that sometimes we don't want to wrestle with, but it's a really important topic to do so. Let me ask you this. So, Klaus, I could see people saying, well, I'll put it off to tomorrow because there's always another tomorrow. But is there a possibility that there's some people saying, I don't want to go through the process of really getting clear on my purpose because if I do it, I may have to say no to certain things or no to certain people
Yeah,
or
yeah,
establish a
yeah,
list of things that
yeah,
I'm not negotiable on, and that
yeah.
just feels uncomfortable and awkward and
Oh,
difficult and all that type of stuff.
completely. I think this is why most of us, it is uncomfortable. Let's face it. We will all, when you go through this, the self-discovery, you will eventually face some very, very tough choices. And you might face the choice, am I with the right partner?
Mm.
Am I doing the right profession? And one thing that is a very nasty thing is this fear thing. You know, fear drives us into behaviors or non-behaviors. And what I use fear as an acronym. And fear is for me is the acronym of false expectation appearing real. False expectation appearing real. Because what I think most of us have experienced in big or small things, when you come to a point and you say, I had it, I will attack the bull by the horn and I will manage that. And you think, okay, what could happen? And then when you look hindsight, what has happened, through this? How did it all evolve? And how great was the outcome in the end? You'd say, I should have done this earlier. should have done this earlier. So I almost use fear as an indicator of saying, well, is there something that probably I should get my hands around? But it is uncomfortable, no doubt. What is unfortunately the outcome of avoiding this is very often this boiled frog phenomenon, that people basically say, oh, I don't handle it now. Then there's something else comes to it, and you say, oh, it's only a small adjustment. Oh, it's only a small. And that's exactly why people say these things on their deathbed. That's exactly why they say it. It's always these very small, almost unnoticeable things that make the frog not jump out of the water while it's cooking, while it's starting to cook. But I would say don't become a boiled frog. Take it on and also look fear in the eye and don't let fear drive you into a behavior that increases your chances of ending up as a frog and wasting very valuable time of your life. And also don't think of, I mean, this whole discussion about work-life balance. In reality, we are one person. I never saw work as the opposite of life. I mean, I spent a lot of time in work. If I live by the principle, I love it, I change it or I leave it,
Mhm.
right? And if I don't feel that I can change it, then I'd say, okay, it's probably not the right thing for me, and I should move on and use my time in a more impactful way differently.
I'm curious what you think about this. I've never really written it down, or it's just something always in the back of my mind. So you talk about like the fear component of, we'd say false expectations appearing real. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
When I think about that, so I've had times like in my 20s, I was in the military and I did the Army Ranger thing, jumped out of planes and did all that stuff. And I guess in my 30s, I had a business. And when I think about those things, I've often found that it's not uncommon, or maybe another way of saying it is common, that people would tell me something is going to be really, really hard. And then I get into it, and I'm like, it's not as bad as they said it was going to be. And then other times when they tell me it's going to be really, really easy, I get into it and go, oh my gosh, it's a lot harder than they said it was going to be. So I think sometimes there's this like, you just have to experience it yourself and jump in that water and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time, you don't have to make every mistake yourself. So I think I would also highly recommend, I mean, have a big group of mentors, even if you don't call them mentors, but people who you ask. I've always tried to learn from others and ask other people. It's almost never that if you approach somebody, even if you don't know them that well, and say, "I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this," that they turn you down. If you do it in a nice, friendly way, that allows you also to avoid some mistakes that others have made. So jumping head into a pond and you have not asked how deep the pond is, it might have a really bad immediate outcome, right? And unfortunately, I've seen that, so it's better to check out, and I have another saying, particularly when you work in large organizations that have this gigantomanic approval processes, and you are a young Turk, you want to rock the boat. I say, look, I mean, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. However, if you feel that this has a chance of drilling a hole under the waterline, ask somebody who's more experienced.
Yeah.
If it's something where you say the boat is most likely going to go faster, but they are just not willing to do it, that's fine. Then do it. Do it. And you know what? If the boat is going faster, then nobody will blame you for it. If the risk is that the boat will sink in that, don't touch it until you have done your real good analysis that that will not sink the boat.
Ah, that's great. That's great advice. I'm wondering, as a leader, you've been in so many leadership roles, obviously at the highest level in organization, but also in your developmental process going through that. The more you learned about the inner game, and the more you weren't learned about like how teams effectively navigate at the individual level, their own purpose, their own kind of walk in their own journey, and then collectively, how does the team or organization win on its purpose? I mean, what have you learned along the way that some people just kind of miss, over and above the being clear on your purpose and really kind of making time to invest in yourself? But when it comes to teams, for example, what do leaders of teams do that might be
Yeah.
draining the energy of their team and they just don't even know it.
Yeah, no, I'm a super big fan of building teams, and I also see how people are struggling with this concept. And I think in the on this team side, it is, I mean, you have an Army Ranger background, so for you it's natural what I'm going to say. You are in a mission on a mission. The mission very often has risks. Very often has risks that you lose your life or get massively harmed, and you're put together with 4 or 5 other people who you only know barely, but you know they've all gone through the same type of education, right? So what is the foundation of a high performance team? The first is that there's trust among everybody. That if there's somebody on the team that one individual doesn't trust, why would I put my life on the line with an individual like that in there? So trust is the foundation. So the second thing is you have to be able to handle conflict, because teams who are just sweet talking, and kumbayaing, those are not high performance teams. The real high performance teams are brutally honest in also criticizing each other. At the same time, it is very well understood that the criticism is not a criticism for you personally. It's a criticism on how you do your job, what you do in the mission. You have a role in the mission. So very, very clear. Conflict is an extremely important and positive element in it, because everybody brings something else that they see to the party, increases the likelihood that you'll win together. The other one is once you say, okay, we're done, and you say, you do this, you do that, you do this. The moment you say that, and the other one basically nods, this is a personal commitment with my life. Personal commitment. I will do that. And the fourth thing is, you are also accountable. So if something comes in the way and you think, oh, I can't do it, you're not just not doing it. You actually find a way around it. You try to fight to get to do your commitment. And if something goes wrong in this, you personally are accountable. There's no doubt you will accept. You will say this was your fault. Your fault in that situation. The last thing is, and funny enough, the last thing is simple. You're aligned around what does winning look like? What do we want to achieve? We want to capture a bad guy alive, or we want to capture a bad guy and we kill the bad guy. It is really funny that how often I have conversations with business leaders and they tell me, I'm very unhappy with my team. And one of my first questions is, well, what do you want to achieve? And they say, I want 20% growth this year in this few markets. And I said, so, and what would these people say if you have a chance to ask them? And they are looking at me like, because if you were to ask the people, and sometimes I have the opportunity to talk to the team leaders, and you ask them, what do you think is the mission? What does winning look like? They say, oh, I want to improve my operations. The other one says this. But if this is not aligned around, hey, we want to double our market share in this marketplace, and that adds to this. But the ultimate goal is doubling market share, if that is the case. And that's the interesting thing, where the analogy to sports or high performance teams in military is very, very important. In soccer, it's clear. You shoot a damn goal. There's the goal. In football, you go over the line, boom, boom, done. In business, very often people already struggle with explicitly phrasing, this is what I want in winning. And basically make sure that all the team members understand that's our goal, that we are in the end considering winning.
I was reading through that list because you said it. I jotted it down, and I encourage people to listen. If you need to go back and listen again, just do it, because
Well,
I agree.
trust, conflict,
Yeah,
commitment,
yeah. I mean,
accountability, results.
conflict. I mean, so many people. I just looked through this list. I'm like, gosh, trust. Do we extend trust to people? Do we behave in trusting ways? Do we assume that people are coming to us with with trying to do the right thing, or do we kind of feel like, oh, everybody's trying to cheat or cut corners? I mean, if you're on a team and you feel like everybody's trying to cut corners, that's not a great way to approach it.
Oh, very bad, very bad, very bad. Exactly,
And,
exactly.
and then conflict, it's going to happen. If people care about their work, if they care about what they're trying to do, or in your family, if they care about the family and they care about where the family is trying to go, by nature, you're going to have different visions of what success look like. You're going to have different ways more often not success necessarily, just how we're going to do something. which causes this conflict. And sometimes we avoid it, and it doesn't. You know what I've noticed, Klaus? Avoiding conflict in a relationship, it never gets better
No,
on
it
its own.
doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I know
It
that sounds
doesn't.
silly, but people
It's
do it
not
all
just
day
in a
long.
relationship, it's everywhere where humans are coming together. The question then is, how do you do that? And the distinguishing when you address it between, hey, I love you, you are a wonderful person. There are many traits here. I have, however, seen in this environment that you did this, which I don't think was in line with what we all wanted to do. And I think there would have been a better way to do it, so that the person doesn't feel you are attacking the individual disrespectfully. If a person feels that you are attacking the person as a person, then the outcome is bad. If the people feel safe, you as a person are not getting attacked. I am talking about how you behaved in a certain way in a certain situation. So distinguishing the behavior from the person. I think that's the trick really, to be brutally hard and still have a productive conversation.
In writing our book, Disrupt Everything and Win, Jim Patterson and I interviewed a bunch of different people, and two people we interviewed were Stanley McChrystal, the
Yeah, yeah,
retired
yeah,
four-star
yeah,
general, and
yeah.
David Petraeus. And
Ah,
both of them, we were talking to them just about this very thing around the military is really good at like after action reviews. After they do something, they're pretty brutally honest about how it went. And you could argue part of it is because the stakes are high, right? And maybe I can say the stakes on the battlefield are certainly higher than the stakes on can I grow market share 1%? There are certainly different stakes, right? But the bottom line is the stakes are high in both situations, and you got to get comfortable at being. I heard somebody say one time years ago, I'm pretty young at the time, but it was in one of these type of after action reviews. He said, I'd rather be wrong one time and people tell me than keep doing it wrong over and over and nobody has the kind of the kindness to tell me.
yeah, no, that's true. That is true. That feedback is a gift. It's a gift and not a criticism. So no, no, I fully agree. And I purposefully think that it is good to look at the military in this regard when it comes to high performance teams. It's a bit more dramatic than in the normal world. But on the other hand, if you really want to achieve something, it is not that different. If otherwise, the competition is going to eat your lunch and you will fall behind and eventually, you will be on a gliding path to go down. What is so different there? What is so different? You have the responsibility for a few thousand people that you're leading the wrong path because you feel that you are kind, because you are not saying to the individual how they screwed up in the last mission, or how they are holding their team back, how they are riding on their ego horse, and not listening to others. That bad, really bad, really bad.
Yeah, you were talking earlier at the very beginning. I think this is kind of full circle on this around athletes and some things they do exceptionally well, whether it's maintaining their energy levels and looking for ways to kind of reset their energy level, but also that feedback piece. I mean, whether it's a coach
Right.
providing feedback or think about a race car team, right? That's constant feedback from instruments, the driver to the pit to the driver. I mean, there's constant feedback going on there, and nobody's I mean, I should say nobody because people do get very, and emotions do arise. But the idea is that feedback's an expectation. How's that? So they're not guarded around every data point. I don't look at the I don't look at an instrument on the panel of my dashboard and get mad at it just because it's giving me feedback that says I'm not driving fast enough or whatever. It's feedback. It's a data point. So, well, hey,
Yeah.
Klaus, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. I know
Yeah.
that the listeners will benefit so much from our conversation. I really appreciate your wisdom and all the journey that you've gone along the way. Keep going. Don't put off till tomorrow, but I hope you have lots and lots and lots of more tomorrows, my friend. Folks, pick up a copy of Leading to Thrive. It's not just a business book, really. It's a reminder that leadership starts from within, that real success isn't about sacrificing life versus work or vice versa, but about building a life where both matter deeply. And as you listen to the podcast, if you're looking to fuel your performance, you're looking to lead boldly, if you're looking for ways to say, okay, how do I put a little bit more energy in the tank and get smarter along the way? Pick up a copy of Klaus's book, Leading to Thrive. It's available everywhere. And thanks so much for joining us. That's all we have for today. My name is Dr. Patrick Leddin. Now go make it a great day.